familia. Buenas tardes, buenas noches. Thank you so much for joining the third work in progress lab of the Philadelphia Latino Film Festival. Yes, this is the Philadelphia Latino Film Festival's 10th edition, PHLAFF 2021. Before I begin, follow us on social. Use the hashtag PHLAFF 2021. Now let's get into today's treat. You're here for the third work in progress lab. And we created this space because it's aligned with what drives each and everything that PHLAFF does, to build community, to connect with community. And this space was created to have an opportunity to present works of filmmakers that are in progress in different stages of production, and also to have an opportunity for them to build community with a group of panelists that will provide feedback on the samples or the pitches shared. But this is also a window into the process for those that are looking into creative films and those that are working in films to also hear other perspectives, which is also at the core of our work, is the cross-cultural, intergenerational, all kinds of dialogues that really provide support to creatives. We have 3 wonderful projects to share with you today. And I'm gonna start just sharing what they are. First, we have Melanie Silva with Dear Sofia. That's a documentary film that it's in development. Then that will be followed by Patty Cruz with Nacio Simon, which is also a documentary, and that is in production. And we will close with Eunice Lewis with InVade, which is in post-production and is a genre film. It's a narrative, but also a different genre. So definitely you're in for a treat. We are joined today by a wonderful panel. And the idea, again, is to provide different perspectives into the process, but also different perspectives into audience and peers and colleagues. And we are honored to have Beni Matias, who calls herself an accidental documentary filmmaker, but she's one of the founders of NALIP, the National Association of Latino Independent Producers. It's an honor to have you with us, Beni, and this is her 2nd year with the Work in Progress Lab. We also have Peter Decherney, who is a professor of cinema studies, and it's also a filmmaker, and it's his first time in the Work in Progress Lab, but Peter has been a member of the PHLAFF family since 2019, where he shared a VR film with us, or a preview of a VR film as part of our opening night. Thank you for being here with us. We also have with us Emily Abi-Kheirs, and Emily comes to us from Women Make Films. And she comes to us to share her experiences in marketing and in other areas of this field, but she's coming to us to also offer a lens into a distribution process and considerations for filmmakers that are looking to distribute their work. We also have a filmmaker in the house, which to me was really important to have a perspective of a filmmaker that can talk more as a peer in terms of his own process. And we are honored to have Kristian Mercado Figueroa. Yes, Kristian Mercado Figueroa, that guy, the director of Nuevo Rico. Yes, the director of the Bad Bunny film. Yes, the one that keeps on premiering and winning stuff at South by Southwest. That's the one. Great to have you, Kristian. And last but not least, we have the honor to have Shannon Thomas, who's a program manager for Doc Society. And Shannon's work, it's really centered around impact campaigns and working with creatives that are and organizers through the Good Pitch platform and Good Pitch local platforms, providing a space for dialogue and also for opportunities for people to pitch their projects and connect with funders, with peers, and with other folks in different fields, so they can get a comprehensive look that will support their impact campaigns. Before we get into the projects, I want to tell you a couple of things. Number one is that I already told you to follow us on social. So Just a little reminder, but I'm not going to go too deep into that. But I want to take an opportunity to also thank our collaborators and share with you that you will have an opportunity to watch this session in a variety of platforms, including FLAFF platforms, but also through PhillyCam. A big shout out to the PhillyCam family for sharing our offerings with their audience. I want to give, last but not least, I want to give a shout out to our programming team. Cristal Sotomayor, our programming director. Thank you so much. Kirsten Senske, our programming coordinator, and Sofia Mondragon, our programming intern. It is an honor to be with you today. Let's get into the projects. You're going to have a great time. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you, everyone, for this opportunity. Marangeli, thank you so much for this honor. Okay, so Dear Sofia is an intimate documentary about me, Melanie. I'm a 37-year-old filmmaker, video producer, director, and it's about my journey as a mother and advocate to my daughter, Sofia, a 6-year-old girl who was diagnosed with autism in 2019. Before the pandemic, I was a full-time employee, creative director at a production company in Philadelphia. And Sofia was a full-time preschooler. And once the pandemic hit, I became a full-time mother and full-time entrepreneur and career woman. We've been together over a year every day. We haven't had much contact with people except for close family members due to the pandemic, while working on my career and being a mother. So now we get to the point where I have to prepare my daughter and myself for the next chapter in Sofia's life, entering kindergarten, where she'll be in a class of 29 kids. So having come from a situation of just being here by herself with me and few family members to be in a completely different environment, and how will she adapt to that? Though this life change is the primary focus of Dear Sofia, it's important to note two other things. First, I'm pregnant with my second child due at the end of June, and the birth of Sofia's brother will no doubt shake up the family dynamic. And two, we see the struggles that I'm facing of trying to be a perfect parent for my autistic daughter, while also trying to keep up with my work in film and video. I have a new production company that I'm trying to get off the ground. So I'm in this pivotal moment, where I'm struggling with the realization that I might not be able to commit to the work that I've always wanted to do. I won't be the filmmaker that I've always wanted or envisioned myself being, and that I might have to settle for smaller roles so that I can be a great mom to my kids. Some of the themes that we'll be talking about in the documentary is motherhood, work-life balance, autism, raising a child with more support needs, although we do not intend to speak for the autistic community. We do not have the authority to do that. Acceptance and understanding, accepting my reality, but also accepting people in general. I need people to accept my daughter for who she is. I need to be accepted as a mother in the film and video world and given the space and the support to be a mother and to also have a career. I shouldn't have to hide my kids for calls anymore, or be ashamed when they drop in. COVID-19 has driven millions of women out of the workforce. In September of 2020, when schools resumed, many of them with remote learning, 80% of 1.1 million people who exited the workforce were women. COVID has done a number on all women, but especially working women who have had to juggle full-time work and full-time taking care of their kids. And in my case, I want to continue to work, but I also need to be there for my daughter as she starts this new chapter in her life. How do I do that and be a happy, whole woman at the same time?
Dear Sofia, this has been a long time coming. I've been meaning to write this to you since before you were born. I knew this would be the hardest letter of my life. I'm not sure where to begin. I guess we'll start at the beginning. The day I found out I was pregnant with you was one of the happiest days of my life. I know it sounds cliche, but it was. I sincerely apologize for the times I have failed you as a mother. No one is perfect, and baby, I hope that's something you learn sooner than later. You'll suffer less, believe me. Perfection doesn't exist. Perhaps you don't even see perfection, and this is pointless neurotypical advice. Being a mother has been a lot more difficult than I thought. I especially felt that the first 3.5 years of your life, until we found out you were autistic. Autistic. That moment, I actually felt some relief, believe it or not. And then we found out, and I finally felt that I could begin to understand you. And how to be a better mother to you and for you. But at the end of the day, I will always be your biggest advocate and cheerleader. You are my life. Ever true. My mind. In memories of yeah.
Cry at all, it's the pregnancy hormones. Okay, so in terms of the vision, so while this documentary is an actual letter from me to Sofia, and it's going to be a common thread throughout the film, we'll be hearing it in different moments. This is also a visual love letter from Sofia's father to her as he's the DP. The camera will observe moments, but we also want to set up and plan out a few scenes whenever we think the story or the moment needs it. Not every shot has to be perfect, but we're also not doing a feature film that's a family video. So there are these poetic moments that represent what we as her parents imagine in terms of how she views the world. We decided that we are light years away from knowing or understanding how Sofia sees and feels her environment. And so this movie has to be told from our perspective. But we want people to see the beauty in autism. And we want to show the difficult sides in the most respectful way possible as well, while respecting the autistic community. For everything that we know and we plan to shoot, we're prepared for that. And those moments where something is going on that we think could be important to the story, but we don't have the camera ready, we are going to use our iPhone 12s. El Chivo Lubeski shot a commercial for Apple on it. So I think we could get away with that as a backup when the unexpected happens. This won't look like a typical documentary. I would call it an intimate portrait with narrative storytelling elements and experimenting in editing. We're not going to have the typical story talking heads, but we will have interviews, very, very intimate interviews where I discuss other things outside of that letter. We want something that looks and feels different and to really connect on a deep level with viewers. So right now we're producing. At this, we're in production, but at the same time, we also are in development because there are things that come up. Our plan at the beginning was to just do something that was more of my journey as her mother and advocate in terms of autism. But then we discovered that there's this other part that I'm struggling with, and that's having a career at the same time and wanting to have that, and being in the middle of therapies and IEP meetings and preparing my child for kindergarten. It's a real struggle. So we have the documentary is evolving in terms of the creative as we dive deeper into everything and make more connections and realizations. But since we have the access to all of the characters, it's really easy just to pick up the camera and film when we need to. And we're editing at the same time. There are obviously moments that we know that we need to film. The birth, when Sofia meets her brother for the first time. That's super important. And we know that the end of this film will be her first day of kindergarten, which is August 31st. God. We may find that we might need to film a little bit more after that, but that's really what we're planning as the final shoot day. And then we'll really get into post-production in the fall and hopefully finish the film by the end of the year. Right now, we are just a two-person crew entirely, and Sofia. It's my husband and I. This film is for mothers, for parents, for mothers and parents of children on the spectrum or other neurodivergent kids, especially those that just received a diagnosis, because I hope that this will help them in the beginning, which is so hard. But most importantly, mothers, working mothers who are struggling with this balancing of raising children and working. In terms of getting this documentary seen, well, we live in the day and age of social media, and that's our biggest ally for distribution, especially for people like me who don't have the experience of festivals and distribution deals, and it's easy and accessible. We hadn't really thought further at this point. We do want to submit to film festivals, but nothing more than that. We're just currently immersed in filming and completing it, and because this is such an issue for me, is having time for everything right now, just to think of grants and all of that. I really want to do that. I just don't have the resource to pay other people to help with those things. And we just wanted to do it. We just wanted to tell our stories. I will say sometimes I get a little discouraged. I'm in these wonderful documentary groups that I love, and they talk about grants and this fellowship and that. And I get overwhelmed and discouraged because I feel like, what happened just to picking up the camera and shooting and just creating, and let's just do it. So that's kind of what we decided. We didn't want to wait. We had COVID and we had something to say, and so we did it. Finally, this is a cathartic film that's meant to open discussions. I want parents, I want mothers to know they aren't alone. Often we think we might be the only ones going through something. And when we raise our voices and we start talking, then we realize that someone else is going through it as well. This is supposed to be something, this was supposed to be something more personal and just for our family or for our friends, or especially for Sofia, a real love letter for Sofia. We weren't expecting to get a positive response with the work so far. And as we dive deeper, we realize that this has the potential to resonate with a lot of people, parents, and especially mothers. I'm all about that. I want to live in a world where we accept each other, where we build community and respect each other's differences and support each other to be happy people. I hope that in the very near future, people learn more about autism, and that instead of trying to change autistic people to fit into the neurotypical world, that we can meet in the middle. And that's everyone, not just autistics, in every sense. And I hope that mothers can start having childcare on set and breaks in production schedules to breast pump or breastfeed, and that maybe we can even take our babies on set if it's necessary. It takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village for many other things. And my dream is to be able to create more of these villages. Thank you. Sorry, it really is the pregnancy hormones.
Thank you, Melanie. Thank you so much for sharing with us and for, just opening this window for us to learn more about Sofia and about your work and about your journey. We're honored to have you here. And we're going to begin now with the feedback from the panelists. You're muted, Beni.
I know. And I kept saying wrong button, wrong button. So I was, okay, doesn't matter, my Zoom illiteracy. Um, you've taken on an incredibly difficult task. And I commend you for it. I think you and your husband are incredibly brave. Um, it's going to be a fabulous film that will go beyond mothers, the autistic community. It will really reach many, many people. I have a couple of concerns, which is that you and your husband can potentially burn out because you are being parents to an autistic child. You're going to be a brand new mom, and you have set up a very tight schedule. My recommendation would be, since you don't have the money to hire other people at this point, is to finish shooting to that August date and then take a break, because you need a time to bond with your new son and to really deal with that new family structure that you have. Also, you're going to be in that mommy, where is my brain? And if you try to continue working on the film while you are still a brand new mom, you're going to get very frustrated because you're going to feel that you're failing because you're not achieving your goals. You're not failing. It's just that you have set up a very difficult road without a support structure. My recommendation would be, after the baby's born, take some time off from the film, and then when you're ready, start editing, then really look for some money, because by then you will have had a lot of footage, and you can hire other people to work with you, because you and your husband cannot do this film alone. I know that there's a whole thing about, the individual artist. Yes, we could do it, esto que lo otro. In the long run, there are some people who could do it, but it's not my recommendation for you and your husband, because you are really needing to concentrate on your family. And I'm sorry if I sound harsh about it, but I really want you to succeed.
I don't think you sound harsh at all. I think that makes sense. I'm burnt out already. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And what I've found, because I'm an editor, I was first and foremost an editor, is that I can't direct and edit my own projects. I need space from it. I think that's really important. And my husband has been doing most of the editing right now, and I think he needs space from it too. And I think getting another point of view would be actually wonderful. So thank you.
Yeah, no, I think that's really great advice from Beni. And especially now more than ever, because everyone is so burnt out from the trials of the past year. So really beautiful work, and I'm really compelled, and I really just can't wait to see more. To me, it felt like a kind of diaristic film, and I would kind of encourage you to think of it that way over the next period in which you're shooting, rather than trying to think, as just to extend what Beni's saying, rather than trying to think about the final film, really try to just think about documenting what you're doing and what you're feeling, and that will just give you this really rich material for later. I think it's really great that you want to tell such a personal story, and that you're really aware of it as a very personal story, and that you're not trying to tell a universal story that's about autism or about motherhood. But I actually think by going really deep personally, that will make it more that'll make it resonate with many more audiences because of that. So yeah, I mean, it really just looks beautiful and terrific, and you're sort of on the right track, and can't wait to see more of it.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Actually, one of the professors, I studied film at Temple, and he said, don't do backyard stories. And that has stayed in my mind since 2005. And I kind of don't agree with that. Maybe, I could offer something different in that deep personal level. And especially because yes, I'm not trying to teach anyone about autism. One things I can teach or say is that when you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. So I can't speak for the community at all. I don't pretend to. They would actually be very upset with me if I tried to do that. I can talk about what it is from my angle as a mother and my personal struggles that hopefully will resonate and help other parents along. Thank you.
You know, that gives it more authority, and we trust the story more, and I think we'll be more engaged because of that.
I absolutely echo what Beni and Peter have said. I was so compelled by your trailer. I think it's absolutely beautiful. It's so lyrical and poetic, and I can't wait to see, you know, a sample of the film itself, you know, maybe a scene. And I think that's where I'm going to ask you to think about a little further is, you know, what's the framing of your documentary going to be like? You know, how personal is it? Through whose lens are we going to hear the story? And as you think about this, I love that you don't want to have a sort of talking heads documentary. I think it's a little, you know, it's more personal than that. So just think about sort of, you know, that character, that story structure, what's going to really drive the story from beginning, middle to end. And so to talk about sort of like some resources that you may be able to find help in. If you haven't connected with your local women in film and video chapter, I highly recommend you do so. I'm sure there's a lot of women and female identifying filmmakers out there that would love to help with a story like this, as well as, you know, organizations like Brown Girls, Doc Mafia. I definitely think the trailer is also so strong enough to, you know, maybe go out and get some funding. So I would really encourage you to use this to go find funding now, and think about, you know, where you want to see this film. Like, what are your goals for distribution? Do you see this on broadcast, on public media? Do you see this on a commercial platform? Do you see this as an educational tool? Because I can sort of see it going in different ways, and I'm super happy to talk with you more about that if as you get closer to those thoughts. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you. I would love to talk to you more about that. I am in the Brown Girls Doc Mafia, which is the fantastic community. I've learned so much, but also has been very overwhelming. Before, I think today, I hadn't even thought about, okay, maybe we do need an editor, you know, maybe we need someone separate from us. We cannot do it all ourselves. And I think it will enrich the story. So I will definitely also look into that to help with that funding. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was really cool. I like the visuals a lot, and like I feel like I always think of film as like a journey to truth. So I think like the more you can kind of find the truth in it, the better. I would just like lean in on that truth and kind of just like try to like make it a reflection of that truth. And sometimes I try to think in themes or tones, you know? So like I always think of like what my theme is and like what am I trying to tell the audience, you know? And so like when I figure that out, I feel like that just guides my projects really well because I'm kind of thinking of like who I'm talking to and kind of the audience, and like that helps drive a project really well. So I think that sometimes if you have like, even it sounds maybe overly simple, but if you have like a one sentence theme that drives it, it helps a lot. And I was thinking a lot about the work of Abi-Kheirs because she's got like this documentary called Love True, which I always liked because it's kind of like very boundary pushing in terms of like what a documentary is. And I'm mostly fascinated by documentaries that push a boundary because I think the format has existed for a long time, and there's a lot of point of views in that, how that operates or how that works, you know? Like I think I subscribe to the idea that once you make a cut, it's objective, you know what I mean? Not subjective, it's never like truly objective, you know? So like, I think, you know, people make decisions all the time in a documentary and it's really hard to find like a pure objective truth, you know? So I think the stylization and the idea of kind of finding poetry and kind of leaning into those aspects to me is exciting, you know. I think there's a lot of documentary that does recreation or poetry, and I think investigating all that is really interesting. I think Barry Jenkins just dropped something cool that I thought was really interesting called The Gaze, which is just like 1 hour of people staring at camera. But it's really interesting, you know, might be worth looking at something like that too. And I guess something that might be challenging, and I don't know where phase you are in your project, but it'd be interesting to also hear from your daughter, and maybe hearing her voice in it would be powerful as well, you know, even though that might be more challenging. And, you know, obviously it's asking a lot. So I, you know, I say it with consideration of that, but, you know, in the idea of finding a truth, you know, I feel like if this film is very small and intimate, it sounds like it's almost like a conversation between three of, you know, family. And I think hearing everyone in the family speaking to some degree will make it a stronger film.
I will definitely bring up that point with my husband, because it is something that I've told him, you know, you're behind the camera, but you're her father as well. And he's very adamant about it being us. And I'm not opposed to that. My husband and I have separated in the past. I have been the constant in my daughter's life. And that's the truth. It has been the two of us. I have been her biggest advocate. But I think, like, I love the idea of having his voice. I think he prefers it to be that visual voice, and coming up with these scenes, that's his gift to her. The pushing the boundaries in document, I completely agree. Yes, it's something that personally I love to experiment. I love to go beyond. He loves to kind of bring narrative into documentary as well, and I think this is a great story to be able to do that. But I will talk to him again, because I do feel like, especially when I'm speaking and it's not the letter, that it needs to be a conversation where we're talking as parents. So I will try to push for that. Thank you.
I have one last thought. I'm sorry, Shannon, just very briefly. I would suggest that you try experimenting by giving your phone to your daughter and seeing what she films. Because having worked in different groups where we have worked with autistic kids, their imagery is really many times different from ours. And then that's another way of bringing in her world, not just with the spoken, but with images that, you know, might be very different from your husband. And the other thing is that you can also take the camera and film your husband being with her, or whatever it is. God, you have such great, oh, that's so great. You have a really great film. Congratulations.
Thank you. I that is a fantastic idea, because she does love that. And I didn't mention Kristian, but she does talk. Like, we have scenes where we're, you know, talking together. So Sophia will definitely be heard. But I love the idea of giving her, and maybe that gives also an insight to how she does see the world. So we have from our perspective as parents of what we think, because their brains are wired different. That's all, you know. So and it's really interesting. She would say that the magnolia trees look like there were butterflies on the trees, and I thought that, wow, that's such a great, unbelievable way of looking at the world. So I love for people to see that, because I think there's a misconception of what autism is. Thank you.
Melanie, thank you so much for sharing your work. It was really touching and like a glorious, intimate portrayal of you and your daughter. And for me, the work I do with Good Pitch is all about finding partners to kind of further your work and make sure that you as a filmmaker are supported, but also your message and your story has a nice long life and, you know, gets the audience it deserves. And for me, when I was hearing you pitch, and this is kind of just a comment and a question to you, was it sounds like it is the framework is a letter from you to Sofia, but also it sounds like maybe through this past year and being in COVID, it's also been about you and your relationship to motherhood. And just in terms of your framework and your timeline, how much does the pandemic play a role in your story? I'm sure obviously forcing you all inside. And is the pandemic, is COVID a character in this film? Because it sounds like that's changed a little bit about what your goal for your story is. Just hearing you speak about it. Now, maybe I've got it wrong. And so, yeah, I guess I had a few other ideas in terms of potential people that might be a really good starting audience for this. There's lots of groups, especially around supporting neurodivergent women, both young and also mothers, that I can send you some information on that we've done some work with. And I guess my other question was, do you have any plans around how you share this film with other neurodivergent audiences, whether it's parents that are neurodivergent or with children, or how you plan on maybe presenting it and incorporating it to mixed families like that, like yourself?
Okay. First, any resource you can share is greatly appreciated. COVID as a role. I guess I didn't come to, I think as I mentioned, we kind of we were planning to focus more on just my journey as a mother of an autistic child. But the more I thought about things and the more I got into the story, and this isn't in the teaser because I think we did the teaser and then came to the realization that part of my struggle of being a mother of an autistic daughter who needs so much support is that I have this need and want to have my career. There are a lot of parents that when their children are diagnosed, the mothers just stop working. I am in this point where, oh my God, do I have to do this? Right before we have this wonderful session, I had to take my daughter to my parents' house. She absolutely did not want to go. And I started crying. I said, this is exactly what I feel. It's like, am I going to be able to do this? Am I going to be able to be the filmmaker that I want to be and be the mother that she needs me to be? How do I marriage these things, So I think what COVID did was just make it really evident that this has been hard on women, especially because unfortunately we still live in a world where it's not equal in terms of gender equality, and the pressure is more on the woman. My husband right now is in Mexico filming, and he can do that because I'm here taking care of my child. I don't get to travel. That's difficult for me. I haven't gotten to do the travel jobs that I would have loved to do. COVID, I think, just brought it, made that part of, women suffering more, more evident. But I don't know if it's necessarily a role. It just brought about things. Being home with her for a year, and then now being terrified of an autistic person that doesn't do well in social environments, doesn't have any friends, and now I'm going to put her in a class of 30 kids. It's terrifying. So I don't think COVID is a role, but I am going to continue to think that. I'm going to go through that. And then in terms of the audience or reaching out to her, I'm also terrified of the neurodiverse community watching something like this. They're very, very blunt. I love it. I've learned a lot more from the autistic community than I have ever learned from any doctor or psychologist, and I follow what they do. But it is also a struggle for me because I'm constantly, as a mother, worried, will they accept this? Will this be okay? If I do this to my child, is this okay? I constantly ask Sofia, are you okay with us filming? When she is tired and she doesn't want to film anymore and her father wants to push, I said, that's it. She's done. We're not going there. I understand, but we have to be respectful of her as well. So I worry about getting backlash like Sia got backlash from for her film, but that was necessary backlash. That was different. And that's why I say we're not talking for the neurodiverse or autistic community. We're coming at this from our perspective, but definitely with a lot of what we've learned from them and supporting them in the film. You can't have everyone happy. I have to learn that. I don't know that myself. I say that, but I have to be prepared because I know that there will be people who will, in all aspects, that will critique. So I'm a little scared of bringing it into the neurodiverse community, to be honest.
Yeah, and just I know we've got to wrap up here. Just to follow up, is I can see why that would be definitely nerve-wracking. Just thinking about as you expand your team, or as you maybe think about adding somebody as an impact consultant, maybe adding somebody,
yes,
you know, an autistic filmmaker, someone who can own that a little bit for you and share that experience with you, and you know, be part of the process when you're ready to open it up to other crew members.
That we are actually doing, and that we said we do need someone, an autistic voice that's in there, working with us and guiding us a little bit as well. That we are doing. Thank you, everyone.
Two last thoughts. If mama isn't happy, the children are not going to be happy. So you have to find what's going to make you happy, because then that's what's going to make you a better mother.
Yeah.
And there'll always be the trade-offs of needing to have your children interact with others. And then as far as the autistic community backlash, you can't predetermine that, and you can't be afraid of it. You just have to go with your heart, your gut, and your brain, and make the best film that you honestly can make, and then have those conversations, because no one knows where that's going to go, where it's going to lead, what's going to happen. You know, trust yourself.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Beni. Great way to wrap up the segment. Melanie, thank you so very much for sharing this jewel with us, and we can't wait to see more. Now, let's move into Nacio Simon. Patty from Bayamón. I need to acknowledge that you're talking to a Bayamonesa here. That's my town. Take it away.
I didn't know that. Thank you so much, Marangeli. Hi, I'm Patty, born and raised in Bayamón. Right now I live in Santurce, which is in San Juan, but I go to Bayamón every week to see my parents. I'm happy to be here. Thank you all all the panelists and fellow filmmakers and Philadelphia Latino Film Festival for having me here. I usually work on fiction films, so this is actually my first documentary film. My short fiction film, La Amante, The Mistress, was actually part of the Philadelphia Latino Film Festival last year and received the Lola Award, so we were very grateful for that. And well, moving on to my first documentary film, which I'm really excited to make, and I want to show you all a video pitch that the producers and I worked on at a market lab that we had a couple of months ago. So I think that's the best way to show you all like our faces and our motivations, and also the teaser trailer for that film.
Hola, mi nombre es Patti Cruz y soy la directora del documental Nacio Simon.
Hola, soy Samara Pérez Santiago, soy productora puertorriqueña y cofundadora de la casa productora Filmes Casa.
Hola, yo soy Jade Azevedo, soy productora en Brasil y soy la coproductora del documental Nacio Simon.
El documental sigue a Liz, una persona no binaria, es decir, una persona que no se identifica como mujer ni como hombre, y madre soltera de 2 hijos preadolescentes, quien durante la noche es Simón, drag king bien querido en la comunidad queer de Puerto Rico. Cuando llega la pandemia del COVID-19, Liz y Simón buscan convivir en el mismo espacio doméstico de la casa al que están sujetos. Es decir, ¿dónde se manifiesta Simón durante la cuarentena cuando no existen los drag shows? Hacer drag es una práctica artística, pero sobre todo un acto político, donde se exploran las distintas expresiones de género. Por ejemplo, Una persona que se identifica como mujer puede vestirse o asumir manerismos que se consideren masculinos para ser drag king. Lo inverso a esto es lo que se conoce como drag queen. También se pueden explorar otras expresiones de género como lo es el no binario. Mediante estas exploraciones, nosotros reflexionamos sobre esta multiplicidad de identidades que existen en todos nosotros.
A mí siempre me ha gustado el mostacho, como que siempre me gustaban los personajes que tuviesen mostacho. Con un bigote puesto me atrevo a hacer lo que no me atrevo a hacer sin bigote.
Así que, sin más preámbulo, Simón.
Yo me levanté con una de perreo, le dije a papi. Y yo, aquí, normal. Y en mi mente, ay, ay, ay.
¿Y esa es la familia completa?
Este es Joel, este es Alejandro, pues este soy yo, este es el niño, este juego. Aunque soy abierta a quien soy, que soy una persona queer y todo, hay veces que en el rol de ser mamá y todo esto, a veces como que necesito un tiempo de no ser literalmente tan fem. Yo necesito tener el balance de las dos cosas porque no puedo bregar. Este es mi closet, esta es mi parte del diario vivir y hasta aquí llega mi área normal. Entonces, ¿verdad? Normal, entre comillas. Para mí, esto de la pandemia, en verdad, es muy difícil porque pues Simón se mueve a través de la energía de las personas. El atropello, ¿verdad?, de todos los días, de la normalidad, de la heteronormalidad, nos ataca tanto que necesitamos eso. Es un golpe bien fuerte. Pues mira, yo quiero volver a ser Simón y partirla.
Nacio Simon será un documental de cine directo, un retrato observacional de Liz y su drag Simon. El documental busca deconstruir los prejuicios que existen hacia la cultura del drag y mostrar su poder como un espacio seguro, liberador y transgresivo en la sociedad. Liz es madre y a la misma vez Liz es Simon, drag king. Estas identidades coexisten, se expresan y no hay necesidad de suprimirlas. Por otro lado, la poca representación de la comunidad queer y LGBTQIA+ en la cultura audiovisual nos deja vulnerables a actos de odio y violencia. Tuvieron que pasar casi 30 años antes de que yo pudiera palabrarme como una persona no binaria. Resentí por muchos años la etiqueta impuesta de mujer, y la de hombre nunca me pareció correcta ni atractiva. He tenido suerte de que mi identidad de género fluida no incitara más violencia que el bullying y sus repercusiones, cuando muchos otros han perdido sus vidas por razones similares.
Durante los pasados años, Puerto Rico ha estado enfrentando una crisis de violencia de género. Día a día nos levantamos con noticias de asesinatos hacia mujeres, personas trans y seres no binarios. Dado a esto y a la inacción por parte del Estado, la comunidad queer se ha visto forzada a tener que crear sus propios espacios seguros. Para Liz, Simón y muchos en la comunidad, estos espacios son su forma de sustento y respiro. Nacio Simón será grabado un 100% en su totalidad en Puerto Rico, precisamente por ser un lugar en donde Liz y Simón viven/performean. Al momento, hemos grabado un 40% de nuestro material. También hemos logrado conseguir $15,000 en fondos de desarrollo y $36,000 en servicios en especie de nuestro presupuesto valorado en $214,000. Igual, hemos recibido apoyos de distintos mercados y laboratorios y becas de cine, tales como Fondo Beta Local, Taller ISLAB, Mirada Doc y North Shore Fellowship. Igual, hemos consolidado una coproducción entre Puerto Rico 80% y Brasil 20%.
Brasil se quedará con la postproducción. Acá tenemos un equipo conformado que ya ha trabajado con Patti en otros proyectos. Hoy estamos aquí buscando financiación para terminar la producción y realizar la postproducción. Te invito a conocer nuestro proyecto.
Hi. I just realized we didn't have subtitles in this version. I apologize. And I thought we did. I'm so sorry. But I'm gonna talk about the film in English for those of you who don't know Spanish. I'm also like living in Puerto Rico, so I forget these things. So Nacio Simon, or Simon was born, is about Liz, a mother of two sons, but also a drag king, Simon. We wanted to make this documentary before the pandemic hit, and we started filming like 2 weeks beforehand. So the pandemic's changed our narrative a lot and what we wanted to focus on. So at the end, we are also incorporating the pandemic and how that has affected Liz or Simon, because we don't have any more drag shows. And how has that affected her or they in her home space? Because Simon or Liz needs those two worlds to like keep it together, to be their self. So we are exploring themes of gender, gender expression, also motherhood, or a different kind of motherhood, if you will. And if you have any questions, I'm open to answer them.
Beni? Oh, one thing, Patty. Before the panelists begin, you mentioned something. If you can give us just a quick run through, you did talk about funding. If you can talk a little bit about that, just quickly, so Emily, Peter, so we're all Shannon know exactly where you are in your process.
Sure. Yeah. We've received some development funding, and we have filmed about 40-50% of our material. Like Melanie said, it's also like something that something comes up, and we filmed it because we're also a really tight crew of people from the queer community and also friends. So we're like actually 3 people, one more than Melanie's. And when something comes up, we go to film it, and we're actually trying to like make a first draft at least of the edit in the next couple of months. But we're still looking for funding, especially post-production funding, since we have adopted this guerrilla style of filmmaking because of the pandemic, and we just couldn't stop filming.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You and your team are incredible. Our Puerto Rican community, unfortunately, is terribly homophobic, transphobic, and all of those other things that religion does not want us to consider as being part of our community. I really love your project. I think it could be a lot of fun. One of my concerns is that when you start talking in your sample using, that graduate school language, of gender studies and all of those things, I just kind of go, I just want them to just talk about the human beings and don't go into that academic gobbledygook. And no offense to academics, love them, have good friends who are academics. From the friends that I have, I think, it's a community that just loves to just be out there. And that's more of what I want to see. I want to see those interactions, between them. And a lot of times what also happens is that that folks within those different communities do have family members that love them, and that unfortunately a lot of times what they say is, I accept you, but don't do that in public. So it's really about teasing apart the difficulties that we have within the Puerto Rican community. And I say Puerto Rican community, but I know that it really talks to a lot of different communities. particularly communities where, you know, it could be issues of working class, it could be you know, issues of religion, you know, all of these things. So I want to see them perform more. You're great. You know, you have a great team. Congratulations.
Thank you, Beni. Yeah, actually, the film or the documentary itself is very observational. So, I mean, we get to see the community and we get to see them talking and being there, and the crew as well. Like the part of the crew comes in in our voices or in our conversations. So it's a very it's a much more casual film than the way it's presented, I guess. But thank you for that tip. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Don't
so
mean
with
to
my,
interrupt.
oh, go ahead. No, go ahead, Emily.
Oh, I'm just like really looking for a little bit more context because I'm so sorry, I don't understand the native language. And so I'm wondering what's the connection from the crew to the film? Can you just like talk a little bit more about, you know, the story and like just, you know, what it's about a little bit deeper so I have a better understanding?
Sure, yes.
I'm gonna jump in real quick. Patty, how long is the clip again?
It's 6 minutes, the whole
Okay.
thing.
Okay, I just wanted to offer if at least you want to send a link to Emily to watch it.
Oh,
Or
I
if
could
you wanna-
send you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You too.
Go ahead, Peter.
No, I'm just saying, I'll take the clip as well.
Yeah, and if actually, if people don't mind, and I will be okay if you share it. If you want to share it, and so then Peter and Emily can pick up and like in terms of the feedback.
Yeah.
So like share the clip again, or just a teaser, and like
you can
maybe translate it while it's going on.
No. I thought you had one with captions. That's what I'm asking. Do you have one with the subtitles that can be played?
Yeah, I will have to look that up. So that might take some time. I think I can. Yeah, I think I can talk about it more, so we don't.
Okay, and then you can follow up with the clip.
Yeah,
that's fine.
I'm so sorry. Yeah. To respond to Emily's question, we're all like the cinematographer, the sound person, and I and Simon. We're all part of the queer community here in Puerto Rico. When I first saw Simon's drag show about 3 years ago, I knew that, like, for me it was something different because I've seen a lot of drag queen shows, but that was like, I think that was my first time watching a drag king show. So, you know, a person who's femme by gender or feminized by gender, like doing the opposite, playing or dressing up as men and doing those mannerisms. And for me, that was really something. And also because Simon incorporated a lot of the political aspects going on in Puerto Rico, a lot of political things going on in Puerto Rico at the moment. Simon always takes whatever's going on and puts it into the drag show. So not only like flash and glitter, you know, there's also like a deep political content within them. So that first show like blew me away. And shortly thereafter, I became friends with them because we worked at the same place at a restaurant. And like we started talking and we decided we wanted to do we wanted to show this world, you know, this drag scene world, drag king, especially in Puerto Rico, in the middle of the Caribbean, with all this Latin Catholic tradition going on. And we wanted to like share our community and share like how our community is resisting in this island. So that's a little bit of it. That's how it all started, at least.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, so it's with limited Spanish. I will comment just briefly on yours, but maybe I can talk about my own experience in a way that hopefully is useful. After Hurricane Maria, I made a virtual reality docu-series about artists in Puerto Rico, and we're just finishing. We're actually finishing. We finished about half the episodes. We actually just got a grant to finish the rest. We're kind of excited. We just finished the picture cut, but the one that we released and sent to festivals, the one that had by far the most attention was about a drag queen in Puerto Rico, Anomalia. It was the one that was yeah. So it was the one that was shown. I mean, she was amazing, and I'll send you the YouTube link, and you can watch it on a phone. One day I will bring a headset over, and you can actually watch it with the headset. But it won an award, and it was shown at the most festivals, and there was a tremendous amount of interest. One of the most fascinating things about the story was how the drag community had changed during and after the hurricane. And so I'd be curious to know if there's what kinds of changes the pandemic has brought. I think that's a really important part of any kind of performance and on artists, and especially artists who are performers and need an audience. How has this transformed things? What did things move online as they did in so many other fields, or were there smaller communities? What happened?
Yeah, thank you, Peter. I would love to see that on Anomalia. She's amazing. And pandemic has definitely changed a lot of things about the drag scene, and that's part of the film as well. I mean, how has that affected the practice or the shows? For sure.
Well, I will say from a completely visual experience, it looks like a lot of fun, and I can't wait to see more of it. And I'm wondering, I'm wondering if there's any like political demonstrations. Again, I might be missing like a couple of things here that you could also incorporate into the narrative. I'd obviously want to see more of you all. I think that's amazing. Just how strong the representation is of the filmmaking crew, and I think that's a really strong thing to think about too as you think about distribution down the line. I'm wondering, how will you know when your film is complete? Do you have sort of an arc in mind?
Yes, we actually want the film to end with Simon's first post-pandemic show. So that first show after all of this time, I think would be a great one. And since we started filming, we didn't get to actually document a lot of their shows. I mean, we did, but they're all kind of in the past. In that time past, we want to like end with that like high energy, and as you like Beni and you mentioned, like this is we want it to be a fun documentary touching on very important themes, but to maintain that fun atmosphere or light atmosphere, and we wanted to end with that. I think that would be a very strong ending.
And just again to reiterate, I really loved like the closet of clothes. Like I want to see more of that. I want to see more of the costume, not the costumes, but I want to see more of the dress. And maybe even the process. But
yeah, there is all in it. Yeah, we have filmed some of that.
But thank you so much for sharing. I can't wait to see more.
Thank you.
Yeah, it looks amazing. I thought it was mad exciting. Like I like the vibe and the feeling that it gives you, and it's just cool. It's got good energy. Like in general, like it's like complicated issue, but like so many like joyous aesthetics. Also, kind of I like those contrasts when that happens. In film a lot. Like complicated fame, but at the same time feeling joy at the same time, and as a complex human emotion or complex thing that happens in life. I thought that was beautiful. I thought Beni earlier said something really powerful too about like trying to find like less like the academic approach and more the human approach to it. Like that's kind of like the beauty of it all, like seeing everyone as people, and like the more we see that, the better. But for context, I think as a film and for audience, it might be good to like, I don't know if you need to do it like too on the nose, like a film reel or something, but like I imagine in the film you might want to contextualize what the situation is in Puerto Rico with, gendered violence and like all the things that are happening and permeating culturally in Puerto Rico, just to kind of give a sense of like, oh, what's the political landscape for people who might not completely understand or know what exactly is happening, and then like just giving them an entryway. But it doesn't have to be like, oh, like a series of clips, or it could even just be like finding someone who maybe knew Alexa, like could be a good example, like talking to that person and then having like a gateway from a human element, like, oh, this is something that's happening in Puerto Rico that's dangerous and problematic, and it's coming from a human element. I think that could be powerful, you know?
Definitely. Thanks, Kristian. Yeah, yeah, we're thinking a lot about that, how to contextualize without any interviews or any like texts on screen, right? Because it is like a direct cinema style documentary. But I think the context will be there, even though maybe not explicitly, but it will be, and it will be also there in the conversations that happen.
Cool. That's awesome.
Please make sure that you get good sound.
Yes.
Because particularly if you have like a couple of people cross talking over each other, because that's where then, you know, it's hard, not only just hard to edit, but then a lot of people won't take it as seriously because they have to work too hard. And as viewers, we tend to be lazy. And particularly if you wanted to reach like an English speaking audience where you're going to have to do subtitles or something else. Ojo.
Sí, gracias, Beni. Yeah, for sure. We did subtitles once for like this draft that we had, this short draft, and it was so fast. I mean, because Puerto Ricans speak so fast in Spanish. So the English subtitles were a nightmare, but it's, it's something that we definitely will need to like take care of when during the production and post production. Thank you.
I think that's me. Well, Patty, I love this film. It's like everything screams like queer joy and resilience and resistance, from the non-binary titles to your crew appearing in drag as well. Like, it's just great. The threads are all there. I really think the story of drag kings and other kinds of drag communities that aren't drag race are really important in like the queer narrative. So thank you. In terms of what I was hearing is at Dockside, we have a lot of, we've done a lot of labs with queer filmmakers and impact work with queer filmmakers. So I have a bunch of resources and some funding opportunities I can send your way. And yeah, I just was thinking a lot about how you can tell the story of why this is joyful and subversive without taking away from that, going back to what Chris was saying about incorporating some of that external context. I was just wondering, because they appear in the film, the clip briefly, at Lisa's sons, you know, what they think of their mom. That might be a good entryway, maybe, to thinking about, you know, what they think of having, not only living in a queer household, but also, you know, with a mom that's out there in public in her queerness as young men. So that's an option. I think I would be interested. I was interested to learn more about them and their dynamic as a family. And then just one last thing in terms of maybe examples or something to look at. I don't know if you've seen Layla Weintraub's The Shakedown, but that documentary is like hella joyous and really subversive. And I think there might be some parallels there for you to look at. But yeah, thank you. This is really exciting.
Thanks so much, Shannon. Shakedown is definitely a reference for Nacio Simon. I really love that film, especially for that, because we do really want it to be about that, you know, that joy and that resilience and that subversiveness. And the kids are very much in the film, maybe not asking them directly what they think about their mom, because it shows, like, it shows what they think about Simon and their mom, and it's just like completely normal to them, and that's fantastic. That's just like amazing, and they're very much creative in their own ways. And we also wanted to show like that struggle of raising two young boys or young men into this society while being, you know, part of the queer community and like doing drag and exploring that male gender, you know, in their drag king. So that's definitely something very interesting and something we want to explore. And I would love for you to send me any information that you're going to share.
Totally, I'll send it your way after this.
Gracias.
Thanks, Patty. Definitely a treat. Let's move on now to our third project. Eunice and InVade. Take it away, Mama.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you. This is an honor to be here. I am so excited to hear about all of your projects. My project is not a documentary. It is a narrative fiction, and it's a sci-fi piece. So the project I'm pitching today is InVade. InVade is a bilingual English and Spanish sci-fi short that follows an undocumented scientist and his son as they try to stop an environmental disaster. So the pilot script for InVade was initially developed in the Sundance Collab TV writing cohort. It also made the second round of the 2020 Sundance Episodic Lab selection process. So after almost 2 years of working on the pilot script and developing the series, we've taken the first step of producing the short film to communicate the vision of the episodic series. While the short film shares characters and themes and predicaments that will be found in the series, it is a standalone short. In late 2020, I was awarded a grant from the Independence Public Media Foundation to produce the short film version of InVade. So the first thing you need to know is we did it. We shot InVade. It's an incredible environmental sci-fi short film. And in the short 16 minutes, we explore stories of immigration, government transparency, single parenthood, and environmental threats. The story is about a Dominican ultrasonic engineer, Dr. Ramon Luna, who comes out of hiding when he discovers a correlation between the government's testing of super ultrasonic power drilling in the Pennsylvania Appalachian Mountains and low-scale earthquakes along the coastal Northeast. When the government plans to move forward with the full-scale drill, Ramon's only hope of stopping the drill is to convince an old colleague to present his evidence of the impending disaster. When that fails, all hell breaks loose. And it's up to Ramon and his son, his 8-year-old son, Rudy, to warn the public and stop the drilling.
Josh, no one has ever drilled that deep into the earth. The pressure will squeeze the plates. It will cause earthquakes for hundreds of miles.
It's just a guess, Ramon.
It's a damn good guess.
Yeah, and we know what happened the last time you had a damn good guess, right?
No, okay? But yes. That error cost me everything. Thank you. And yes, I could have done something and I didn't, okay? Look, Luna Labs operated out of a small town in Haiti and it caused mass destruction. Imagine the scale of that disaster here. Digging a super deep borehole in Western Pennsylvania? Come on! This will be your Luna Labs, Charles!
No, it won't, okay? The area is remote, no one will be affected.
What the hell is wrong with you?
Ramon, you created the machine. Told everyone it was safe. But now it's unethical.
I created it to drill through rocks. For safe waste disposal. For gas extraction. An alternative to fracking. What they're planning is far beyond ethical. It's immoral. And you know that, Charles. Come on!
So that is our confrontation scene, and it's also the scene that gives us kind of like the backbone of the story. I should have mentioned before I jumped in that this film stars the amazing Elvis Nolasco and Chris Beadham. So Elvis Nolasco plays Dr. Ramon Luna. Chris Beadham plays Dr. Charles Davis, and newcomer Justin De La Cruz plays Rudy Luna, who is the son. So I'm a genre junkie. Sci-fi, horror, fantasy, thrillers. I consume it at massive amounts. I love everything about it, except for the lack of diversity. People of color are largely underrepresented. As a content creator, I am dedicated to narrating stories of people who are overlooked and or silenced. InVade serves as an opportunity to break into the sci-fi genre with a story that follows an undocumented hero. Typically, the undocumented live silent lives, but they experience emergencies, pandemics, and other civil turmoil just like other residents. They're human. The subject of immigration and undocumented people, particularly in the United States, has always been urgent and the rhetoric largely toxic. It is easy to overlook how these people have contributed to the health and wealth of America. So I feel compelled to tell this story through the narrative of characters that are typically voiceless and restricted to a small subset of genres. This story honors their existence and humanity. So we've already completed the film. A rough cut has been created without color correction, sound design, music, graphics, visual effects, you know, the cool stuff that makes it sci-fi.
Exactly what time are they supposed to begin? What time, Charles?
So that is our hero's turning point. It is our hero's moment where he jumps into action and decides that he's willing to risk it all to right this wrong. So all of those pieces that are missing will supplement and elevate the piece. The goal is to introduce our unlikely hero, the circumstances he's dealing with, and to establish Pennsylvania as the primary location for the story. I've chosen Pennsylvania in particular, not just because it is a state where fracking activities are highly disputed, but because it's a location ready for creative economic stimulation. The natural resources, the talent, the proximity to other cities, the weather, it all makes it an ideal state to film the series in. The cherry on top is that it'll bring work to Black and Brown artists in the tri-state area. So here's what I need. We wrapped production, as I said earlier this year, and we need to raise an additional $30,000 or more to finish post-production for the film. So producing within the sci-fi genre is incredibly expensive, particularly for independent filmmakers who do not have access to studio funding or other resources. As I mentioned before, in order to elevate the film's visual effects, we need an innovative post-production team. We found the team, now we just need the funding. So the funds will be used for editing, color grading, correction, visual effects, music, composition, sound effects, sound mix, legal fees, COVID compliance, so expensive, and marketing and film festival expenses. Our goal is to complete the film summer of 2021, this summer, and we are actually kicking off our Indiegogo campaign tonight. We plan to submit to film festivals and other platforms that will allow us to generate a following. And we're going to be following the blueprint used with Netflix Raising Dion. We'd ultimately like to develop the short film into an episodic series. So part of the reason why I'm even here pleading and pitching today is a piece of the marketing strategy that I love help with is identifying opportunities for social engagement. Something that I found is that there's not a lot of money for independent filmmakers that are doing fiction work. It's all in the nonfiction field. And if it's in the fiction work, or if they're in the world of fiction, or if they're even looking to fund something like that, it has to have a social engagement component, and not everything is set up that way. So although this is not a documentary, there are plenty of fiction narratives that touch the public and have a call to action, even if it's a soft call to action, or just initiate conversation. And I'd love to develop a strategy that can have lasting and tangible impact on the community that it's highlighting, and on the community that we're using and reflecting. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eunice.
Okay, I'm out of my league. don't know very much about narrative filmmaking, except that it's way more expensive than documentary filmmaking. I applaud you for the work that you're doing. Can't wait to see it. But I know that the other panelists probably can give you way, better anything, because I can't do anything about it.
So, I mean, I'll just say the fact that there's a lack of diversity in science fiction in particular, is really an important thing to notice, because it's often about race and nation and ethnicity. That's what the stories are often metaphors for. So for changing that balance and interesting diversity at the level of writing and directing and acting, it has a real really can impact the genre. And there's just so many there's so many studios now, even big production companies, looking for talented filmmakers in the pipeline who can create more diversity in front of and behind the camera. That I think there are opportunities to find funding, maybe even surprising places. So I wouldn't ask you to go to independent filmmakers and editors and ask them to work for free, but I actually think you could go to big companies who do special effects and distribution and law firms who work with filmmakers and ask for pro bono work for a small project. And for this project, I think that would be, I think you would make a really compelling case. I'm trying to think of Pennsylvania-based and Philadelphia-based funders. Let me keep thinking, and I'll come up with some more ideas. I mean, Pew is one you probably thought of. Yeah, let me keep thinking about Philadelphia and other funding specifically to Pennsylvania. But I mean, I think you're right. Philadelphia especially is primed to be. I mean, it is a great center for film and art creation. But because of where it's located and the resources, there's so much more of an opportunity to turn it into more of an arts center.
Thank you.
And I know Emily and Shannon will have a lot of great lists of resources ready to tap.
Well, I have to say, I love that you have, a festival strategy and you have goals. I think that's already you're 3 steps ahead, right? So when you're thinking about impact, I think that you have this awesome opportunity for sort of intersectional environmentalism, right? So think about maybe who could be your influencers? Is there community organizations out in Philadelphia or Pennsylvania that you could figure out a campaign strategy or some actions that you guys could take sort of in tangent with the film. So you could come up with a whole impact campaign. And I know a lot of nonfiction films right now are onboarding impact producers. I'm really not sure if that exists for short fiction films, but I mean, why not? You could come up with your own impact team. So I think that for long life impact from your film is to really think about the community that you're serving and how you can engage them. So I'm not sure of any specific ones off the top of my head, but I think that is the direction that I would encourage you to go in.
Thank you. That was a really good idea.
I'm a big fan of the genre stuff, that's really cool. I really like Elvis as an actor too. He's pretty amazing, just captures this, a lot of attention on screen and delivers really strong performances. So it's yeah, it looks cool as hell. It's maybe submit it to a lot of genre festivals. There's a whole community of genre festivals. That's a whole jam, and they're fun, so I think you're probably on the right track, it sounds like you just need finishing work, to get it all across the board. Yeah, I mean, just keep doing it. It looks fun. It looks cool. I'm excited about it.
Thank you, Kristian.
That's it. Well, yeah, I'm a big sci-fi nerd too. This is super cool. Peter touched on it, but yeah, diversity in this genre is much needed. So thank you And I wouldn't be representing DocSci if I didn't plug the Impact Field Guide. So even as you're thinking about how you're incorporating, an impact strategy or how to work and find the groups that are doing the work, we've got this whole like 500-page document on how to do that. So I can send you that. It's a really good place to start. And we also just launched a climate story unit. So we are now deeply invested in telling climate narratives that are different. And we will be launching other iterations of funding streams for that too. So I would keep your eye out on that. And lots of different resources on how to get involved with the climate justice community and find those bigger, some of those big NGOs have a lot of money that might want to use your film to access new audiences, that might be able to give you a small grant or work with you to help you get some of those finishing funds. And so finding unorthodox partners like that might be a way in. And I mean, I might be stating the obvious here, but I don't know if you've, taken your shot with the NEA or the Philadelphia or Pennsylvania Council of the Arts, but they often offer pretty substantial grants to independent filmmakers. It can be binding and onerous to apply, but it often pays off for people looking for that last push, who are trying to do it on their own. So good luck, and I can't wait to see it when it's finished and hear it with music.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It was really, really helpful. I appreciate it.
So hopefully Maggie will circulate email addresses, but so I'll also put you in touch with Penn's program in environmental humanities. And one of the big things they do is support artists working on environmental issues, and beyond their own support, they know everyone who would possibly support this kind of work. So I think that would be a great resource for you.
Thank you so much, Peter.
Wasn't that a treat? I told you. I know I'm super excited to watch these projects and can wait for them to get done. Hopefully we'll have an opportunity, shameless plug, to share them with the PHLAFF audiences. That's the hope. But no matter where you catch up these projects, please stay tuned and check these wonderful filmmakers and their work. And I encourage you to please support independent artists, independent filmmakers, and independent creatives. That is where it's at. It has been an honor to share space with you. It's an honor to share this offering. And thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts. The Philadelphia Latino Film Festival wants you to be part of our community. If you have not checked us out, please join us. It's a great party. And to those that are our friends and have been with us for the past few years, thank you for tuning in. My name is Marangeli Mejia, and it's been an honor to present you the 3rd annual Work in Progress Lab of the Philadelphia Latino Film Festival. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of